Raquel, welcome to Podcastina.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. It's very lovely to have someone show up and be in the same outfit. That feels a little
Totally
similar.
We must be on a similar frequency.
I think so. Although I'm like, oh, where's my leopard pants when I need them?
I know, these are pretty fun.
They're so fun.
Aren't they?
What is it about leopard that's so timeless?
I don't know. I really don't. There is something to be said about it, though. These are actually, I'm going to tell on myself here, these are lounging sleeping pajamas.
Oh,
Pants.
even better. Wait, that makes it even better. Can you tell me how it is that you got into sound healing?
How I got into sound healing. Yeah, so it's a funny story, actually. In 2014, I was studying at a hypnotherapy college, and we had a really small class of only 5 people. And there was a woman in our class who is an incredible musician, sound healer, and she and I kind of became really good friends. And I've always been a singer my whole life. And I decided to book a session with her for some vocal coaching and like activation. And after a few months of working together, she was selling, she had a drum that she wanted to get rid of. And in one of our sessions, she said, I tuned in and I would really love to gift you this drum. And it was a really big deal because this drum had like been all over the world with her. And, had so many prayers were sung into it. So many songs were written on it. And then through that, it kind of gave me like a little bit of like, oh, maybe it's time to start sharing more sound, more song. And she was selling a crystal bowl set, a 4 set of crystal bowls.
Is that a starter pack, would you say?
You could say so. I think some people maybe start with 1 bowl to begin with, just to kind of familiarize themselves. But she happened to be selling 4, and it gives different harmonies and frequencies that can kind of create more of like this harmonic, relaxing experience than just one. And so I purchased them, and I was working in a substance abuse center at the time, teaching yoga. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try these out and see how they land. And they landed really beautifully. And so I would say I kind of fell into sound healing. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something that I actively sought out. But it's been honestly one of the best things that has ever happened to me and has taken me to so many different incredible journeys and experiences around the world.
So you were already somewhat in the healing space if you were teaching yoga. Have you just always been really in tune with what's going on, mind-body connection?
Yeah, I would say as a child, I was definitely really tuned in, and I was a fitness trainer right out of high school. And so I kind of had this affinity for wellness, and I was an athlete. And so I loved being in the body. And when I found yoga, I realized there's a mind body kind of spiritual experience that I was having. And that kind of, when I did my first yoga teacher training, which was around the same time that these bowls and hypnotherapy came into my world, it all kind of came in 2014. I started to realize wow, there's actually a really deep natural affinity and wisdom that I have. And it was almost like a remembrance was being activated. Yeah, from leaving a different career. I was actually going down the law field and path.
Very different.
Extremely different.
Energetically polar opposites.
100%. And I realized I was actually always attuned to these more subtle energetics, I would say. Yeah.
That's a beautiful story. I feel like yoga is a gateway drug into healing for people, right?
100%.
It's always the first thing everybody does.
Totally. Honestly, it's I think the West is so busy that yoga kind of gives them an opportunity to still get their workout in.
Correct.
But also through shavasana, through chanting, through some of the different limbs or expressions of yoga, people kind of get a little bit of a window and taste where they're like, what is this deeper thing happening here? Yeah. So yoga's been, I've been teaching yoga now for 5 years, and it has just been, a gateway for so many people. And so many people are coming into sound and chanting and all the fun things that yoga yeah, like inspired. I think it inspires a lot.
That's definitely fair to say. I
Yeah.
did it initially also for workout purposes in college. And
Yeah.
then it just became this thing of, oh, well, the real challenge is calming the mind and quieting the mind when you're
Yeah.
in there. And so I think that's some people's first experience into trying to do anything where you're like, oh, I thought I was going to come here for one thing and what I'm getting out of it is entirely different, but in a good way.
Totally. Yeah.
For someone that doesn't know anything about sound healing, how would you define it?
Sound healing is a therapeutic tool that I think through different sound instruments and tools promotes a sense of well-being. So we use different things like crystal sound bowls and gongs and tuning forks. And essentially it creates an environment where people can really unplug from the world around them and start to tune in with their breath and with just exploring a deeper sense of relaxation. And it's really interesting actually, because I would say a lot of people, it's so funny as a sound practitioner, finding that relaxation can be very challenging sometimes. And also it's kind of like one of two things I've noticed. It's like people either just like plop down and are so ready to receive a sound bath and like unplug and disconnect. And some people, sometimes I feel like it can actually stimulate the part of them that wants to relax but doesn't know how to relax.
Oh, that's huge, not knowing how to relax. What does that look like when someone comes in and they don't know how to relax?
Oh my gosh. It looks like a lot of things. I've seen so many things. And recently, I think one of the most hilarious was someone started doing push-ups
No.
in the middle of a sound bath. It was so wild. I like looked up and I was like, what is happening right now? But it can look like a lot of things. It can look like fidgeting, a restlessness. Sometimes people are like taking really deep sighs. They're tossing, they're turning in their space. And then sometimes people kind of are like a repressive nature and they can just like hold it and actually create more tension in the mind and the body.
I've been that.
Have you?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, chronic overthinker.
Oh, yeah. Samesies. Totally. Yeah.
Is there a correct way to receive a sound bath? What's like the ideal situation? First timer walks into your space, they're about to receive it. What do you want the layout to look like?
For a first timer, that's a great question. I would say one of the most important things to note when stepping into a sound bath is one, to keep an open mind, because there's a lot of fun and interesting sound tools and people get really curious and they're like, what is that? So keeping an open mind. But two, I think one of the most important things is just really tuning into the breath and allowing yourself to receive. In a world that is like constantly doing and giving and constantly like this energy, this like expression of energy coming up and out, to actually allow energy to come back and in is like it's a concept for us in the West. And I would say, just stay with the breath, close the eyes, allow the muscles in the body to relax, and just be open to maybe something happening. Maybe the first sound bath, nothing happens and you just get to experience really beautiful sounds. But I think, it's like there's so much science that goes behind how a sound bath can actually support our body and being. But I think we have to be in a space where we can actually allow for that to happen. So maybe just, bring your extra cushy blankets and pillows and cozy everything, because you definitely want that so that you can rest. And yeah, I think just like allow it to be what it's going to be. And if the sound instructor is someone that knows how to create that environment, they usually will guide a little bit of breath and an opportunity for people to drop in a little bit deeper.
I think the guidance is probably so important when you come into a space like that.
1000%.
What instruments are being used? Because I think a lot of people are not familiar with that, or maybe they've seen imagery of the bowls, but just get into that for me.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I mean, there's a plethora of instruments, and some of the most popular are the crystal sound bowls, the gong, the tuning fork. But there's also a lot of really other fun ones that not a lot of people, I show up with instruments and I'm like, what is that? Some of the ones that I have is like a really cool like xylophone kind of situation that I play. And if I have a partner that can accompany me, there's kind of like this, it's an instrument called a free note. And it looks like Thor's like slasher, like it's this double paned like metal wand, so to speak. And it has two different notes. And so it creates this harmonic resonance with two notes. And then the xylophone is also tuned into the same key. So you play the xylophone with the free note, and sometimes I'll add in like a beautiful rain stick, you know, to create like this calming, soothing effect. So that's a really fun one. You can play things like the harp. You can play like the crystal harp. There's metal Tibetan bowls, which is really fun. I think a lot of people are also familiar with the Tibetans, where they kind of try to keep the mallet steady, and it'll go. I also play guitar in my sound baths.
Very cool. You're like a jack of all trades with all these. Did you know how to play all these instruments already, or did you pick them up as you got into it?
I actually learned guitar during COVID.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And yeah, a lot of the instruments that I think I'm learning and playing now are just kind of coming as I dive deeper into sound baths and want to create a fresh experience for the people that come. So I teach at a studio every week, and it's like, how do you keep it fresh, you know? So I'm actually wanting to learn the flute this year, so people can bring in flutes.
I'm having PTSD from 5th grade, but continue.
Oh God, no, I have a story about the flute in the 1st grade, actually. In the 1st grade in my nap class, I remember playing the pencil flute, and my teacher she actually pulled my hair and she told me to knock it off. And I remember I told on her, and that was a whole other thing, and she got in trouble. But the flute, yeah. I actually would love to hear your flute story if you want to share it.
It was, well, I think in the school system that I grew up in, it's really nice that they introduced instruments, but I think everybody started with like the recorder, maybe in 2nd or 3rd grade.
Okay.
Hot cross buns.
Okay. Okay.
And then we were encouraged in 4th, 5th grade, 6th grade to do like middle school band.
Oh.
And most of the choices, I think, of course, there was always like the one really ambitious kid that came in with like an oboe or just something ridiculous. Totally. But mostly it was, especially for the girls, it was either clarinet or flute. Mm-hmm. And I think I grew up as a little bit of a contrarian, and so it was like less popular to do the flute versus the clarinet. All the girls that I grew up with did clarinet, and so I wanted to do flute, but I'm not musically oriented at all. Okay. And I thought I would be. My mom plays piano beautifully, and there's a lot of different artistry in my family. I could never quite grasp an instrument. And instead of just speaking up and telling someone, I would like go to these recitals and I would just blow air into the flute and just hit buttons. So it looked like I knew what I was doing and that I was participating. I wasn't actually playing.
That's amazing. Yeah. You got away with it.
I got away with it, and I kept that charade up for probably about a year before I fessed up and was like, look, I don't want to participate in band. This is just not my thing.
You know, I think we all connect to music in our own way. I think some people play it, some people listen to it, some people dance to it, some people produce it, some people write it. And so it's just finding like how you wanted to express with music. So flute was not the way for you.
Not the way, no. Yeah. And I ended up in dance classes. So it was like, that was the outlet after everything.
Amazing. I love that. See, like I never considered myself the dancer. I was always like the vocalist. And then from the vocalist, it's been interesting to be in sound baths because I do incorporate my voice, but it's like I let the instruments speak. And, you know, everything is always speaking. Everything is a vibration, a sound, a frequency. Even silence is a sound. And actually one of my favorite dearest sisters and friends, shout out Reggie Riverbear, she said that when she started writing music, that it was in the silence, that it was so beautiful in the silence that sound wanted to be birthed.
Oh, I love that.
And I was like, wow. And when she just said that, like that's just struck such a chord with me because I was like, it's from the vibration and the stillness of the silence that there's room for so much to be created. And that just like, yeah, that just expanded my mind and my heart. And I was like, wow, like, Yeah, so it's interesting. Like we come to a sound bath and there are beautiful sounds being played, but actually what we're seeking is the silence of the mind.
Mm-hmm. Oh, beautifully put.
Yeah.
And people I struggle with silence in life, I think. I have known myself to struggle with silence.
Oh.
I've noticed even with doing comedy or with podcasting or anything like that, I have to be so mindful about pauses, because I know when I listen to a podcast and there's like an extended pause, my first reaction is, what's wrong? Did
Yeah.
this turn off? Is something going on? Did I lose internet connection? It's like
Interesting.
the silence becomes so uncomfortable sometimes when people are not prepared for it or
Totally.
anticipating something else. I just love the way that you put that you're going to a sound bath to get internal silence.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the silence can be a scary place for people, because then they're really face to face with the truth. And sometimes the truth is something that we want to avoid. And it's like, what is actually existing? And so that's why it's so interesting. It's like, we have so many vices in the world, and there's so much disease and disconnection and pain and depression and anxiety and suffering. And it's because so many of us are actually disconnected from our internal truth. But in order to discover that, we have to be still and we have to be silent enough to be able to listen. And I think what Reggie maybe kind of was referring to in that is like that connection to the divine, to something higher, because it's from that place. It's like not every sound is a sound that we can actually audibly hear.
Say more.
So I think it's said that like the human hearing can only listen between like 16 and 1,000 hertz. And that's why there's like whistles for dogs that like we can't hear, but they can. And so, you know, it's like, I think like the divine probably speaks at such a high hertz that in order to really receive that messaging, we have to be in this like really still place for that download or transmission, or so many of these like kind of new agey words that get thrown out there, but like to really be able to receive whatever it is that we need to know. And some people could say like that's intuition. That's like an ability to be this. We start to get into more esoteric realms of like psychic connection, you know, and that's something that I've always been attuned to. So like my sound healing experiences, I'm not a trained sound healer. I'm not. And people are always like, what? You're not a trained sound healer? I'm like, no, I really just fell into it. But I was always musical and I was always listening, and I'm a deep feeler. And I would say maybe a little bit of like neurodivergent.
We all got a little sprinkle.
You know?
Yeah.
But in that, I think that there's something that's really beautiful, because it allows an extrasensory experience to tune into something else. And so for me, like when I'm in my sound baths, I'm just feeling. I'm listening to the room, and I'm listening to it like through my body. And then from that place, I'm like, what does the room need? What makes the most sense? Like spirit, you know, that's how I connect to the divine. Like, where would you have me go next? So sometimes it looks the same. Sometimes it's completely different. Sometimes I've been in sound baths and I just like try something that I was not planning for. Mm-hmm. And I'm just kind of like, you know, a dice, like throw the dice and like, let's see how this goes. And I think that there's something really beautiful about being in that intuitive flow, because you're listening to the moment.
And you're being present because someone needs to, right? So you're at the helm of it. And
totally.
Not necessarily to say that everybody coming into one of these rooms doesn't know what's going on or is in like such desperate need for guidance.
Yeah.
But I think there probably is an expectation on that level that if you're the one running the show, that you're going to show up and be present. And it sounds like you being attuned to what the room needs is that presence that's required to run a room like that.
Yeah. And it's interesting actually, because I had a conversation with my student last night, and he said actually for him, no guidance is better. He's like, I don't like it when teachers guide too much, because for me, I just want to hear the sound. And so I think everybody's coming in from, like you're saying, their own level of awareness. Some people have a really strong meditation practice, and it's really easy for them to just be in the stillness and the silence and go in. But for someone who might be a CEO, have a ton of emails, they have kids, they're trying to worry about dinner and laundry and all the things, and their nervous system is in such a state of fight or flight that for them to unplug, they might need someone to kind of take their hand and walk them through down the steps to get to that relaxed, connected space. Yeah.
I've noticed I have sometimes used sound as kind of a way to distract myself and tune out of whatever message I might be getting. I think I've used sound, and maybe people can relate to this, as a way to tune out, to maybe soften the blow of loneliness of like having a TV on in the background, or making sure that I'm like listening to music or have like a podcast on while I'm getting ready, folding laundry, whatever.
Totally.
And so it's almost this interesting examination that we're doing into how sound can be used for healing, but sound can also be used for distraction.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's kind of like tuning in, like, what is our relationship to sound? Because I know for me, like, if I'm in a mood, I find a song to support that mood.
Sure do. Yeah.
If I need to cry, I'm putting Goodbye My Lover, James Blunt. Like, we're throwing it back, okay? Makes me cry every single time. If I'm feeling like, kind of feeling myself and feeling a little tough, I might throw some like Cardi B in. I don't even really listen to her that much, but you know, I think we can use sound to like support our mood. And sometimes like, yeah, it's like, are we wanting to escape ourselves so much that we put something mindless on, or we just have a podcast on and it's just noise, like it's kind of like a white noise.
Yeah, I've used it that way before, for sure.
And I don't really know what the remedy is for that, because I think compassion is a great place to start and say like, wow, like there's a part of me that feels so full that I'm using podcast, television, music to just kind of disconnect. And I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, for me, like growing up, I had a really hard childhood, and music was my saving grace. I had my little Walkman. I would walk around with my headphones and escape myself. There's stories being told through song and sound really can be used in a therapeutic sense where like it evokes memories and emotion. And so sometimes that's good. And then sometimes it's maybe an opportunity to check in and saying like, what am I afraid of listening to? What am I afraid of feeling? What am I afraid of connecting to?
Yeah, I have absolutely no empirical evidence to support this. This is just a theory that popped into my head as we're talking about this.
Totally.
But I wonder if some of the discomfort with silence goes back evolutionarily. And maybe it's silence means you've been banished from the tribe, or you're alone, or something like that. I wonder if there's something about silence, because the way communities used to be and everyone was always together and you would live in multi-generational homes.
Totally.
You probably never had silence unless you were banished.
Totally.
So I wonder if there's something to that, of the discomfort of silence, is that maybe it's signaling to like our monkey brain that something is very wrong.
Unsafe. Yeah, I kind of think of it too. Like for me, it's like, okay, if I were to be in a forest and it got really silent and the air kind of like got a little bit thick, and
The birds stop.
yeah, and like I actually was thinking about this before I got here today. I'm like, not all sound is we can actually hear. And so sometimes like there can be like a presence in a home, in a room, and there's this silence, and you're just like, something about the silence, the vibration, the frequency of the silence actually isn't peaceful. There's something to be said about that, I think. And maybe it's from a, you know, from this perspective of like, we grew up with these, you know, tribe mentality of a lot of people, and we're just used to the constant sound and the banter and the laughing and the this and the that. But also like, I think sometimes there's so much that like we don't see, we don't hear, that it's like, I mean, 99% of what's happening around us, we're not capturing.
Wow.
Our eyes only capture 1% of light. If our ears can only hear a certain amount of hertz, then it's like, what else is there? You know, so that's where my brain goes. But I think for everybody, it's different. And silence is something that maybe we could explore more.
I would love to learn about it more, but kind of on this topic, what do you know is going on scientifically for people during a sound bath? Like, what is so helpful in it that maybe it can be measured, maybe it can't, but what's it doing to people's bodies?
Quite a few things. The first thing that comes to my mind is, yeah, it's like, sound is vibration, it's frequency, and what's happening is sound can kind of mediate through a lot of different mediums. It can go through time, it can go through space, it can go through air, it can go through water. And if our body is mostly made of water, then those vibrations from the instruments being played are actually penetrating into our system. If our mind is the texture of the element of air, because thought is so fleeting, then sometimes certain sounds like a gong can actually break up the static that's in the mind and actually help clear the energy of the mind. It's, through the body, there's been science that has come out that has said that it can help alleviate pain. It reduces cortisol when people are able to relax and allow their nervous system to like really drop into parasympathetic. I think like on a maybe like kind of therapeutic sense, even sound can evoke memory, and it can also help move stagnant energy like pain and trauma in the body. And I think that happens because it vibrates things out, right? So there's a lot of different things that are happening scientifically. I think the biggest thing that people really feel is when that nervous system drops, cortisol drops, and they're able to enter into a parasympathetic state.
I've been fortunate enough to experience that. And the comparison that I think drew me to have more curiosity about sound healing and how there must be evidence-based data to support that it is physiologically doing something to us. Because the way light waves, it's like, yeah, we just see it. Yeah. We see light with our eyes, but you're out in the sun all day, it's going to burn you. So it's not just your eyes, right? It's now affecting your skin. It's affecting the inside if we're talking about x-rays. Totally. So I think with sound, the thing that isn't thought about a lot that I'm trying to give more credit to is that sound is not just for ears. Yeah. It's got to be impacting the other senses as well.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, it's like you have to kind of experience it to feel it, I think, and really step into a space. But yeah, there's a physiological response, there's a mental response, and I would say there's an emotional, spiritual response that's happening. And just because we don't see something, like we don't see our Wi-Fi connecting all of our phones, but yet messages are going off, phone calls are being made. I've had people come to me when I worked in rehab specifically. I would have people that would say like, my dead grandmother came and visited me, and that was super healing for them. Or I saw an angel, or I saw colors. And then people are like, what does the colors mean? And they get all excited because now they're having this kind of like, it's like out of the norm. It's out of what we can see with our eyes. And they're like having this internal experience. And I think that's really what sound offers. It allows us to tune into the inner landscape that most of us don't really make the space to connect to.
Do you have a favorite instrument?
Ooh, that's hard. I really am connected to my crystal sound bowls. They're like my babies. And, I worked with stones back in the day. I did crystal healing, and just understanding the frequency of crystals and like the way that my bowls alchemize together. Like I have 5 beautiful bowls and they're so stunning. They're the crystal tones and they're sparkly and all the good things. But the harmonic resonance, it's actually attuned to, if we were looking to the chakra system, to the heart. And so, yeah, I would say the crystal bowls, but also maybe my rain stick. Yeah, it sounds like just like a gentle sprinkle of water. It's this giant beam with these little crystal beads, and they spiral down the center, and it's really beautiful to watch them spiral. And people say that they actually get activated a lot. They're just like, it just feels like it's like kind of like making the cells like vibrate in a way where it's like the water is like splashing through the cell. Yeah.
Any instrument that you're like, oh, maybe this one's not for me? Or maybe they all have their place.
I think they all have their place. And that's the beauty of being a sound practitioner, is you get to kind of weave, like there's some sound instruments that some sound healers never touch, and then some sound healers have all the instruments. So I think it's just like, what is actually resonant with your energy and your frequency as a sound healer too.
I had an experience that was before I was hip to healing. I think I was in my early 20s, so that's hip probably.
I was hip to healing.
Hip to healing. But I was definitely in my early 20s, so okay. I wasn't really resonating with it. But I went to Sedona, which is like a very quintessentially spiritual place.
Totally.
And, you know, there's crystal shops everywhere.
Yeah.
And for anyone that's wondering what it's like, it's very much that place that you go.
Totally.
If you're looking for that. And I did not know what Reiki was at all.
Okay.
And my girlfriend takes me to this place and she's like, oh, we're going to get our chakras realigned or whatever it was, right?
Okay.
And she's selling me on it. And for some reason, I misinterpreted and thought I was about to get a massage because like the setup in the rooms was as if you were going to get like a private massage.
Okay.
And instead, it was like going to be an energy healing. And I think actually she got a massage. So I don't know.
Oh, weird.
What happened with her practitioner versus the person that I was with.
Got it.
But I got basically just like healing, but where they don't touch you, right? I don't know if it was Reiki or what. I wasn't aware at the time. And I could not take it seriously. And the man starts playing a didgeridoo.
Oh.
Which for anyone that doesn't know is obviously this like really long, really like deep sounding kind of ooh thing.
Yeah.
And Raquel, I was like losing my shit. I was trying so hard not to burst out laughing because I did not know what was going on and I couldn't take it seriously. And I'm like waiting to be touched too. So instead I'm laying there and I'm just hearing a ooh, like a ship.
Oh my God.
Docking at the port sound. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I just could, it was, people need to know what they're getting into, I think, with these things, because me going into it young with no idea what it was going to be and not meeting my expectations, I was like, this isn't funny. But instead I'm like, what is going on?
I mean, the didgeridoo too is a pretty intense sound instrument.
Yeah. And it was only that, right? There was no foreplay with bowls. There was no anything except that.
So you're like, what in the world is happening right now? Like I'm laying here on this bed and that is like, I mean, it's an Aboriginal Australian instrument, this big old horn. You're like, what is happening? Yeah, you know, I think a lot of people do have a lot of expectation when they come into a sound bath. I've actually noticed that. They're like, what are we getting into? And I think, yeah, it's like a sound bath. That sounds like it was like your own personal sound bath with just a didgeridoo.
Right.
But I think, yeah, like a sound bath can be a lot of things. And I've actually been to sound baths where I'm like, also like, what is happening right now? Because it's not what my experience of a sound bath. I think with today's world, like a lot of people are getting creative. So some people will like play a loop. Like I went to a sound bath where someone played a looper.
I don't even know what that is.
It's kind of like you record like one little part and then you'll like stop and then you'll play like a beat, like boom, boom, boom. And then you let that loop and then like you might add like a ha. And then you let that play and then essentially you're making a song. So you're kind of like watching someone like do a live song. And so, yeah, I think like if you were to go and just look at like what is a traditional sound bath, what I'll have the guests here on your show know what it's about. It's like what to expect from a sound bath, like a traditional sound bath, I would say, is you're going to probably lie down. You're going to lie down on a yoga mat or like a nice blanket or something, and you're probably going to be guided to close your eyes and to just lay there for an hour while people strike some different instruments like crystal bowls, gong, tuning fork, maybe some chimes, maybe a drum. And you're kind of being taken on a spiritual journey or a sound journey where you're being bathed in, that's why they call it a sound bath. You're really like your cells are being bathed in different frequencies through different instruments, different tools. And so, yeah, if anything weird starts happening where you're like wanting to burst out laughing and you're like, I don't know what's happening. I mean, I would definitely say maybe, you know, reconsider going back to that experience. But yeah, I would say like really essentially it's supposed to be a supportive environment that just allows you to like receive beautiful soundscape. And yeah, and sometimes people will also incorporate Reiki with their sound. You know, there'll be like some hands-on, there'll be some aromatherapy. You can start to like incorporate different wellness things, but yeah, it's really just an opportunity to relax. Yeah.
That takes the pressure off of it when you explain it like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything overcomplicated. I mean, Yeah, it's really getting creative here in LA, I would say. Have you seen some of the things that are happening in these sound experiences?
Yeah, I went to one recently that I was very excited for, and it was one of these combos where the second half was going to be a sound bath. So I was like, great, got it, understand what that's going to be like. Very much looking forward to that portion of it.
Yeah.
But the beginning was supposed to be, and now I'm like blanking. Before I speak of it disparagingly, I should know what it's called. But this practitioner, when he works one-on-one with people, he'll kind of press on certain points on their bodies. Acupressure, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like guided acupressure with the group before the sound bath, which I don't know if I wasn't doing it correctly. And kind of the feedback I was getting with my friends was that they were kind of having the same experience where they were like, oh, we could have done without this part. Because I think he's probably so good at delivering it himself in one-on-one. But in a group setting, he was just kind of instructing us on where to put our own hands and stuff. And so it was just a lot of standing with like my fingers on my collarbone right here for what felt a little bit excessive. And
interesting.
at the end, I just ended up being like, oh, well, I could have gone without that whole first hour of it. It just didn't really get out of it what I thought I was going to.
I mean, I think it's a beautiful intention, but I think, sometimes when you get in the group setting, it's like there are some things that are meant just for one-on-one.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think sometimes I've seen like things are like, it has to be a cacao ceremony, yoga experience, then sound bath, then ecstatic dance. Then it's like people are like jamming all these different things. And I think that's beautiful and sometimes maybe necessary, but also I think like a 45-minute sound bath. You just get to relax.
That's the sweet spot. It was also 3 hours long, which was like, okay,
that's a lot.
I get that it's such a good intention with what we're setting up here. And the goal for everybody is just to go in there and feel better and maybe learn about what's going on inside. But the way that it played out, I was like, I'm not getting anything out of this whole first hour. And here I am pining just to get the sound bath. Yeah.
Sounds more like it was a workshop than anything else.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Talk to me about frequencies. What do frequencies mean? What should people know about frequencies? Because I think in my experience, you hear, oh, this hertz 542 or 888 or whatever it is. But like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So it's kind of like frequencies are, I want to say they're like the way that light kind of turns over and emits like a vibration or like a wave into the space. So if everything is vibrating, if our atoms are vibrating, then everything is vibrating. And what essentially that means is it's turned into a certain vibration. So some vibrations can kind of look like, if we were to look at like in this moment now, we're in a beta brainwave. And so that might just be like, it's kind of swimming. We're like in this energy of this wave frequency that is maybe like more alert. It's creating an alertness. Depending on how sounds are, thoughts even are impacting a space. Like, let me rewind. So like our thoughts, our words, the foods we eat, everything is like vibrating with an energy. And so, yeah, it's like how those energies are communicating with the space around. It can either create like a sense of calm, which is where we would get like a 528 hertz. It is a certain wave pattern that's emitting into the space that can connect with another cell. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well.
You are, yeah.
Okay. Can connect with another cell that then creates a resonance or a harmonic experience where it's like, okay, now this is like, if I were to say like, I want to choose like love or peace, like that is like a certain wave pattern that then if I can access that wave pattern, then I can experience that feeling. And so, everything is constantly communicating to create essentially like its own sound, its own frequency, its own vibration. And so when we're connecting with people, when we're connecting to experiences, when we're connecting to music, essentially we're saying like, am I actually picking up on the frequency that, or the energy that you're emitting? And do those energies actually match? Are the foods that I'm eating supporting the energy of me being my best, most clear self? Are the songs that I'm listening to creating the energy where I feel empowered and it's positive and it's supportive to my being? Are the sounds that I'm listening to, or the conversations that I'm having, or the thoughts that I'm thinking, are those actually supporting me to be in an energy that really makes me thrive and feel good? Or are they in this kind of chaos, which is where we can kind of get into like cymatics. I don't know if you're familiar with cymatics.
I'm not. I would love to know more.
So there was this study, I forget what the gentleman's name is. I think he was from Japan. And he did this study where he was essentially working with sound and vibration and water. And so he would like his words, he would say to the water, "I love you." And then he would let that water freeze and it would like create this beautiful snowflake. Or he would say, "I hate you." And the water would actually disperse and like turn brown and like would just be this interesting pattern. Or he would play classical music and it would be this exquisite snowflake. And so essentially it's like, yeah, the way that we are vibrating impacts and emits an energy into a space that is either creating beauty and harmony and resonance, or it's creating division, destruction, chaos. And so it's just finding those environments, those people, those places, those spaces that really allow us to kind of rest, you know? And it's like from that place, I feel like that's where we experience harmony. That's where we experience unification. And that's really just two energies coming together that are essentially, like we would say, like kind of more new age slang or like modern words, like we're vibing. The vibrations are kind of grooving together. And I don't know if that's like the best way to explain it, but that's just kind of, my interpretation of frequency, and I guess maybe more like how I see it work and play out in the world around.
I have so much curiosity with that because I think there's obvious feel good music and feel good sounds that everyone can get behind. And then there's also this theory that our taste in music gets frozen in our adolescent years.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
That there's this type of sense where the music, I wish I knew where to reference this research, but that it kind of gets not stuck, like you can enjoy new music when you're older, but the music that you listened to when you were in your most hormonal teenage self is what ends up like kind of resonating with you longer. Like that your taste in music kind of gets suspended.
Interesting.
And I've experienced some of that, but oddly enough, like I grew up in the MySpace, like too. Emo, screamo era.
Totally. I was a scene girl.
Yeah, same. Okay. And while I don't look the part anymore, I still primarily listen to metal, which I think for anyone that doesn't like it, they're like, how can you possibly be okay listening to that? Yeah. It's very intense.
Extremely.
It's very dark. It's very like screaming. But it puts me in the best mood ever.
Wow, really? What is your astrology? I'm so curious.
Yeah, Gemini.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a correlation with that.
Well, I kind of would. Yeah. I mean, from my like kind of lens, I would look at that because Geminis are kind of these two sides. So you're in the podcast, you're in the healing, you're like about the thing, but then you're like, oh, wow. There's the other side of you.
There's the other side. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. And I think, yes, I can kind of get behind what you're saying. Like for me, it was like, I loved Norah Jones. And like, for me, it's like, it's like honey to my soul. And it takes me back to those years. And I think that there's something with sound that can evoke again, those memories and, can kind of be like this nostalgic thing. You hear Britney, you hear, these things.
Spice
you're like
Girls.
100%, But then I think if we were to go a little bit deeper, like one thing that I think is so beautiful about music is that you don't even have to understand the words to have feelings be evoked. And I think that says something about just the energy that music emits. And we can even look back, like tribes and different cultures around the world have used sound in many different ways. And so it's just like an innate part of being human, I think, is to like be connected to music and sound. What that is about the time suspension, I'm not entirely sure, but I resonate with what you're saying. And I would say, like, if I were to look at metal, because the cymatics did do a freezing of the metal music, and it was all chaos.
Of course.
It was all dispersed.
Of course.
So I would say maybe internally, like, what part of you finds peace in a little bit of chaos?
I just love high BPM music.
Yeah.
I really do. Because if it's not metal, which I'm like, these are my Eastern European genes really showing themselves. But I love EDM as well.
Oh, yeah.
Which is all.
Yeah,
and I'm like, why is that so soothing to me?
Because essentially, I think what's happening is we're in training with the music. And entrainment is essentially like it's a phenomena where the brain's electrical activity is mirroring or synchronizing with its environment or the sound. And so maybe there's a part of your brain that like lights up and now you're in this entrainment with it and you're just grooving, you know? But for some people, that part, their brain might not entrain the same way with that. And it might actually create, maybe based on a nervous system thing, I'm not sure, but that's what's coming to me is like maybe the nervous system starts to feel really anxious and stressed out because they're already operating on a high level of stress.
Yeah.
And so it creates more stress. Maybe.
That makes sense. It's definitely something I have a lot of curiosity about.
Yeah, same. I've never looked at it from that perspective.
What sorts of sounds should people seek if they're looking to raise their mood versus what sounds should they seek if they want to go to bed? Is there any kind of like go-to from your POV of what people should reach for?
I mean, if you were to look at my Spotify playlist, it is all mostly like meditative, hertz, like kind of music, sometimes classical music. I would say these kinds of things, these kinds of songs usually, like the meditative music usually has like a sense of the elements, which can really promote like a high vibe, a relaxed state. Yeah, I would say like that might be something if you're looking for like more peace and just kind of like right before bed, it's a great music to listen to. From my point of view though, as far as like if I were to looking to be like happy, what kind of music would I play? I'm trying to think. Like I might put some like Corinne Bailey Rae, like Put Your Records On and like want to dance to something like that. I think it's usually songs that have like from like a music theory perspective, like in the majors. So majors are this like kind of uplifting, happy, upbeat sound, where minors are kind of like this depressive, moody, like mystical kind of like what's going on, like it's like read between the lines kind of energy. So I think whatever that is for you, it's like you could go on Spotify and just type in like uplifting music, you know, and that would come up. Before bed, yeah, sleepy time music. It's usually something calming. For meditation, it's probably the same thing. For yoga, I actually love to tune into the tradition of yoga and listen to the ragas. Like for me, practicing yoga with ragas is like, it actually activates my yoga practice because I feel like the instruments that they use and the tempo with the breath and everything, like the beats per minute, it really supports the flow. So, you know, I think, yeah, I don't necessarily know if I have like a point of view, but that would just kind of be if you were to look at my Spotify playlist, like how I kind of use music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that how, if someone goes to a sound bath, really loves it, and is like, how do I incorporate this into my everyday life without going to a sound bath every day?
Yeah. I mean, I think you can like, that's the beauty of technology today is there's so many resources out there. And I know I've seen on YouTube, it's like people do like 4-hour sound baths on YouTube. But I will say there is something really different about the live transmission.
Yes.
And yeah, I think if you want to have that in-person experience and really feel it in your body, I think go to an in-person experience. If you want to have that as like part of your daily life, yeah, you can type in like soothing sounds, sound bath, relaxation music, if that's what you're seeking, you know? And there's a lot of really beautiful people. I mean, that's not my specialty, but there are people who are creating really profoundly beautiful things on the internet. So creative, like all the synthesizers and all the technology behind the creation and production of music, where I'm like, wow, the way that you can track and lay things over can create like a really beautiful journey that you can take yourself on from the privacy of your own home.
It's so nice to have all these resources right at hand, because I've gotten really into, and maybe this is another one we just haven't talked about, the handpan. But I love the handpan, and I will do that. I will go to YouTube and turn on just like a 2-hour. It's always the same guy.
Yeah, totally. You find your people.
You find your people.
Yeah.
And he just plays the handpan in a forest, and I will just throw that on if I'm writing or trying to get focused. Even when I edit this show, that's what I listen to in the background.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, one of my best friends plays the handpan. and it is incredible.
Why is it so incredible?
I don't know.
I think if I had a favorite, that'd be my favorite.
It's actually a really good one. I forgot about that one when you asked me that question. I love how watery
Yes,
they are.
it is so watery. That's like perfect adjective.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, it's like you really can't make a bad sound on a handpan. Where like a piano or a flute or like a guitar, you know, you can definitely make a bad sound. On a handpan, the way that the notes are kind of like distributed, it really can't make a bad sound. And so I think that there's something about that. It's like, if we were to come back to this watery thing, like humans love water. When we hear water from like a primal level, like we're like, oh, there's life. There's a safety. There's nourishment. There's something growing. And then the water soothe. You know, I feel like the handpan is one of those instruments that just soothes the spirit. Like, yeah, so many beautiful songs written on handpans. I could just listen to it just by itself. But when you have like vocals on top of handpan too,
Ooh,
oh, it's a whole other thing.
I gotta up my handpan listening game.
Oh, we'll have to come play the handpan for you is what it'll be.
That's so true.
Yeah.
What would you say to people that think this stuff is too woo-woo?
There's some elements of it that it can be a little woo-woo. And I mean, I think if we look at the science of just how sound can penetrate our cells and our being and create this meditative state and slow down the brain waves because we become so entrained and so relaxed that if anything else, like allowing your body to be in an environment that allows you to disconnect and feel a sense of calm, even if it's only for 5 minutes. Like, I think that it's an exercise that we can start to practice and just give ourselves the permission to experience. And people have come to sound baths and been like, it's not for me. And that's okay. There's not one path to healing. There's not one way to feel a sense of calm or connection, but it happens to be a way. And it's a way that I think is really beautiful and provide something that the other ways can't, because we humans love music. I have never met a person that doesn't like music. Have you?
No.
Okay.
What a freak.
What a freak. Totally. Right. It's like, okay, crazy. So I think, you know, if you were to come to a sound bath, like at the very least, you're getting to experience like this really beautiful soundscape. And even if you don't completely like relax or have an awakening or see a past loved one or something like that, or the crazy colors, like at the very least, you got to have a beautiful hour experience of instruments being played for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
What have you learned about how different cultures incorporate sound?
Quite a bit, actually. Yeah, my background is in a couple different traditions, and you know, being a yoga instructor, I've really gone in to study like the kind of more tantric path. And you know, in India, chanting is such a powerful practice that they use to connect to higher states of consciousness and to the divine and to themselves. And so, yeah, in my own practice, even like chanting has a couple different benefits. That one, I think it's like when we repeat something over and over again, the way that they use it, it's like you repeat like Om Namah Shivaya or Om Aim Shrim Saraswati Namaha or whatever you're praying to. There's different energies that in different chants you can connect to. Essentially, through the repetition, we are actually overriding our monkey mind and allowing ourselves to be entrained in a trance. And when we can entrain ourselves that way, we actually can start to experience deeper states of bliss and connection. And so chanting is one of my most favorite ways in the world to use sound. And not only is it like allowing our brain to transcend the monkey mind, but actually vibration, when we hum or when we're making sound, even just our speaking voice, it is sending vibration through our own physical body. And our voice is actually one of the most healing sounds that we can ever receive from ourselves.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's breaking my brain a little.
Yeah.
I love that.
Because essentially like the vibration is like penetrating through our physical being. And when we hum, it actually stimulates our vagus nerve, which allows our body to enter into that parasympathetic nervous system. And so I would say it's something that is often overlooked. And if you ever notice when people are happy and feeling connected, they're usually humming.
Yes. Oh, I've done that too.
Right. And so it's like there's something that I think that signifies too, like humming and using vibration and sound. Like it's almost like coming out of you. Like if the silence were to like birth the sound, it's like if you're in a good place, usually like through that internal connection that we're feeling, we're creating. And that's what humans are. We're creators. And so like we're creating through vibration and sound, through humming. So that's one way. Another way that I would look at it is like from a more shamanic perspective. And when I was exploring energy healing and crystal healing, I used to work for this awesome crystal shop and healer, this beautiful African woman. And I learned actually that rattles are a really powerful way to break sound, as well as chimes and bells. And so like if you were to do like an energy healing session, a lot of times like the shamanic practitioners like doing rattles, and you know it can seem a little funny and kind of strange if you don't know what to expect, but these rattles essentially are helping to like again break energy. And we can even use our hands. Like I've learned like you can clapping really loud can actually disperse energy. Chimes can actually break energy and help it to release and to leave, you know, whatever space it's in. When I've done house clearings, it's like, you know, you go into the corners and the spaces where energy gets trapped, and you'll shake bells or rattles or chimes. Shamanic rattles too, like the chikapas and the different leaves, and they smack the body, and like, you know, I'm sure you know, like the Russian
Vanya, yeah.
You know, so it's these different ways that we can just disperse stagnant, stuck energy. And then not to mention like the drum. The drum is like one of the original instruments where we are reminded of the heart and the heartbeat. Dun, 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 dun. And then the voice, and you sing over that drum, and you dance to that drum, and you're by the fire with that drum, and it's just this tribal remembering. And I've heard it said that the earth loves when we stomp our feet because we're drumming on her. You know, and so it's like there's all these ways that we can connect with this like really just kind of like ancient wisdom that is so simple. It doesn't need to be complicated. As much as I love the piano and the flute and the handpan and the guitar and all the things, and that's a skill that it like requires so much mastery and time and devotion, sound can be so simple. It can be a whistle, a clap, a snap, you know. Yeah.
Drumming really is the quintessential thing, and I hadn't given it too much thought, and I recently came across a video and it was a drummer, and he removed the drums from a pretty popular pop song, and he started doing different styles of drumming at the back end of it.
Oh, cool.
To show that the drummer sets the genre. And it was true. So he went through he did like classical drumming, he did reggae drumming, he did metal drumming, and it changed the entirety of the song, right? Because they kept the guitar, they kept the vocals, and it was like drumming sets the genre. And it like I will never look at music the same way after learning that.
Yeah, the percussion, it's kind of like it's the underground thing that I actually was listening. I have a band. And I was listening on the way here to our percussionist play, and I was like tuning in, and I was like, wow, the drum is just giving this song so much. And I think it's often overlooked because we can get distracted in the bells and whistles, but the drum is the steady beat. And it's like, what is the beat? What is the beat per minute? How are we grooving? You know?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an instrument that you don't know how to play yet? Or how do you pick like what you want to learn next, since it sounds like you know so many?
I have two, and you named one.
Drums?
Handpan.
Handpan. Yes.
Yeah, I am around a lot of handpan players, and masterful ones at that. And I just think like, yeah, for sound baths, actually, I'm like, even if I were to sing on them or not sing on them, like just to have that instrument, it really is such a soothing sound that I'm like, that is one that I would just love to be able to gift my students that come to sound baths. And the second is the native flute. And I actually had a custom native flute made for me, double drone, one for my birthday. And it's hard. It is so hard, the breath work that is required for the flute. And I'm a pretty good breather. But yeah, for me, you know, my background is not Native American, but I'm Costa Rican. But I feel like if a past life is real, like I think in many past lives I was a Native American. And when I hear the flute, it's like this, there's just this sense of honor that I feel so deeply connected to it. And it's almost like, I remember one time I was in the ceremony and this flute was being played, and I remember just like my spirit spoke, and it was like, I will always stand at attention when the flute is being played. And it was just, yeah, I feel like if I could be someone to transmit the beauty of the element of wind, because they're wind instruments, and I'm an air sign. So I love the element of air, like, and create this melody. Like, it would just be, yeah, I haven't touched it yet because I'm not that good yet, but I just can sense that there's like this deep honor that my spirit feels, that I'm just like, that would just be such a healing gift for me to then be able to share with others. And I think that's really, like, for me, what sound healing has been. It's like, yes, I love to gift sound to who comes, but as a sound practitioner, and I can only speak for myself, it is so healing to be connected, to be listening, to be in that feeling, and then play these instruments. And then it's kind of becomes this reciprocal thing where I'm healing while people in the community are healing. And there's honestly just nothing like it. It's my favorite place to be.
And what a gift to be able to do something that is in service of others, but also serving you.
We can have it all.
Yeah.
We can really have it all. Yeah.
It's beautiful. What is it that you know about sound healing that you wish everybody knew?
I would say sound healing allows and gives space to an opportunity for us to explore. I said it already a little bit, but our inner landscape more deeply. And if we can, it's a practice like anything, showing up and allowing ourselves to exercise the muscle of relaxation. If we can really get to a place where we can show up and be in a relaxed state and be present, then I think what we open ourselves up to is something far greater than our eyes can see and our ears can hear. And I would say that it is, yeah, it's honestly, in my life, in my experience, has been one of the most beautiful gifts. Like the visions that I've seen, the healing, the emotional releases that I've had. It's like sound healing really does provide a space that can make more space by letting go of what no longer serves, what hurts, what's exhausted, what's, fill in the blank. There's so many things. So yeah, I would say if you can exercise the muscle to gift yourself that ability to really connect, vibration through different instruments and frequencies through these different instruments can really bring something deeper that I would say maybe is even more spiritual. It's like a spiritual experience. Yeah.
Incredible. Raquel Barrantes, if people want to work with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can connect with me through my Instagram. My Instagram is Innocently Wild. And I'm working on a website right now, so that'll be posted, and I have some newsletters coming out. And yeah, you can find all that information on my Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and doing the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And thank you everybody for listening. Bye.
Bye.